Hello, how are you doing? Welcome everybody. Welcome club members and welcome Dr. Simon Keeling in the first of our series of mini seminars. And this one's on how to get the most out of 214215. We've got 30 minutes, so I'm going to shut up and hand over to you, Simon.
Okay.
And I'm going to, there you go, there's the screen. I'm going to disappear and have fun.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining me this evening. It's great to see so many of you here, virtually at least, I should say. What we're going to do this evening is to talk through what I think is one of the most misunderstood areas of aviation weather and kind of often overlooked, because in this day and age, 214, 215 can look rather archaic and rather dated. But regardless of how experienced you are as a pilot, for me, it is one of the best forecasting tools that you can use if you're going to go flying during the next few hours. So if you're going to go flying, let's say today, and it was early morning, then really Form 214, 215, you should be looking at as the basis of all of your weather knowledge for your flying for that day. So what I want to do is to break down Forms 214, 215 for you, show you how I look at it as a forecaster, and show you some hints and tips as to how you can extract the most from it without having to get bogged down in the detail of 214 and 215, because it's one of these charts that we look at when we're first training to be a pilot, when we're doing our PPL or our LAPL or whatever it might be, and we look at it, we learn about it for the exam, but rarely do we really get under the skin of it and understand exactly what it's trying to say. And by the time we've studied this in Met, often it's a case of, well, I've done that and I've kind of forgotten what that was about, so I'm going to use my app, I'm going to use my favorite weather website to have a look and see what the forecast is going to do. And 214 and 215 can often get overlooked. So what I want to do is to drag you back to 214, 215, get you to fall in love with the charts once again, because I do, but then again, that's because I'm a weather anorak, and give you some hints and tips, as I say, about the best ways to use those charts. So what I've got is some live examples, I've got a live example from today to show you, and we're going to go through it and break down the charts, and I'm going to give you just some hints and tips as to how you can extract the best of the information from that. So if you're ready to go, grab a notepad and a pencil, because as I say, I'm going to throw quite a bit of information out at you, and I think you might find some of it quite useful for planning your flights, as I say, mostly for the next few hours. So 214, 215 is really useful for flying today. Now, don't forget that as well as 214 and 215, there's also Forms 414 and 415. Yeah, I know the names aren't exactly headline grabbing, are they? But never mind. Forms 414 and 415 cover Europe. So they cover northwestern parts of Europe. So if you're going to fly into France or the Low Countries or Germany or northern parts of Spain, then Forms 414 and 415 are exactly the same, but cover a broader area. So those charts are available as well. So I guess first off, we should really have a look at where you get those charts from. Now, they're from the Met Office Aviation Briefing Service, and I guess that most of you are registered with that service now. You register by going to the Met Office Aviation website, and you register completely free of charge for the service. There's no need to pay. There is an option there where you can get a premium service that you can pay for, but you don't need to do that. You just sign up for the free Met Office Aviation Briefing Service, and then you log on. And this is what you will see. Initially, you'll get this selection of tabs across the top of your screen. And Forms 214 and 215 can be found underneath the briefing chart section of those tabs. So you just click on briefing charts, then you come down to significant weather and spot winds. Click on that, and there we have Form 215 and Form 214 and the times of issue presented to you. So we'll come back to that in just a second. So this is where you get the charts from. Now, as I say, we're going to look at today's chart. So let's just see what the weather is doing out there today. And probably many of you have noticed how chilly it feels today. This is a satellite picture from the last few minutes. You can get this from my website, which is weatherweb.net. So you just go to weatherweb.net, click on weatherweb.net, and you'll come to the home page, which looks something like this. If you go to radar and current and then click on satellite and satellite UK visible, you'll get a replay of the last few hours of satellite pictures. And this constantly updates, so you can leave it on in the background, and every 15 minutes a new picture arrives, and that updates the sequence on your desktop computer. So what can we see today? Well, lots and lots of cloud around on the satellite picture today, affecting many parts of the country. If you were lucky enough to be across southern, southeastern England and southwestern England, you can see there the cloud is more broken, so some beautiful sunshine there. But for the majority of the country, it was quite cloudy. Just out of interest, and this is something that I mentioned on my aviation weather school courses, can you see there on the satellite picture that little ripple effect in the cloud here? Yeah, can you see that? That's actually wave cloud. So that indicates stable air, but it also indicates turbulence in that area. So within this area, there could be quite a bit of turbulence. And I also just noticed a little bit as well down here across just across southeastern parts of England. So that's wave cloud, and as forecasters, we look towards that just as an indication of turbulence. Just something of interest to note to you while that was there on that satellite picture. So lots of cloud showing up on there, but what about the actual situation at the surface? What did that look like? Well, again, if you go to weatherweb.net and come down to models and charts, and then down to Met Office fronts, you'll see there the analysis chart, and there'll be forecast charts there as well that you can use if you just skip through here. But what we want to see is the analysis chart, which is a statement of what's happening now. So let's just zoom in on that. And there we go. This is the analysis chart for midday today. And because it's an analysis chart, it tells us that it's a statement of actual conditions at the time that this chart was produced. So that was midday. So observations were made across the world at the same time at midday today, and all of that information was fed into a central computer that then created this chart. And it's a chart of surface isobars and fronts. Now just think of fronts as areas of cloud and rain. Don't get bogged down in the detail of fronts, and don't go back to your Met books and start thumbing through and find all the details of fronts. On these charts, I just want you to think of fronts as areas of cloud and also rain. Now, on today's analysis chart, and I can't go into a lot of detail, but we spend loads of time on this at Aviation Weather School. What we've got is a ridge of high pressure, and we know it's a ridge of high pressure because we've got a little N shape there sticking out in the isobars. There's one here, there's one here, and there's one here. And they all extend from high pressure out in the Atlantic. So this through here is a ridge of high pressure. Now, high pressure, you might well think normally gives you fair conditions. Well, yes, it does. But if we get a high with winds coming off the Atlantic, such as we've got at the moment, and there's been fronts pass by, very often you can get residual cloud left behind. And that's what we've actually got outside today. But still, generally conditions are fair in that area of high pressure. We've got fronts up towards the northwest of Scotland, so they're going to be bringing some cloud and some outbreaks of rain. And just notice that the isobars are closer together further north as well, indicating that actually it's quite breezy across Scotland too. Notice I've not put any numbers on there. I'm not talking about cloud bases or tops or anything like that. I'm just looking at a very broad brush overview of weather conditions at the present time. So that sets us up quite nicely for where we are now. Ridge of high pressure across the UK, fronts up towards the northwest. Yes, we've got this very weak front across northern parts of France. That's moving away down towards the south, but essentially across much of England and Wales and Ireland, we're affected by this ridge. Scotland, more affected by a more moist southwesterly flow, and these fronts up towards the northwest. So let's now have a look and get more into forms 214 and 215. Just remember that chart as I click on to form 215. So this is form 215. It's the forecast for this evening. And notice on the chart here, look, there is that front, those fronts that we saw on the analysis chart. There they were on the analysis chart. There they are on form 215. So we're seeing that these fronts, the same fronts are there on 215 as they are on the analysis chart. Okay, we're going to come back and look at that in just a moment. Let's get back and talk about when forms 214 and 215 are produced. So the charts are updated 4 times each day. 215 is generally available at about 8 o'clock the previous evening, with a forecast that covers 0200 to 1100 UTC, so the following morning. So if you've got a flight that's going to leave tomorrow morning, you can actually get a forecast after 2000 hours GMT UTC Zulu the day before. So if you're going to fly in the morning, worthwhile before you go to bed, check out form 215, because that's going to give you a morning forecast. We then get another update at the 0200 hours in the morning, which covers that day, so 0800 to 1700. So for most of us getting up early in the morning and planning on flying that day, it's this issue of the chart that we'll be interested in. There's then another issue of the chart, which is early morning. So that's from that's available after about 0900 UTC. That covers the afternoon and evening period. And then there's another one issued mid-afternoon that covers the evening and overnight. Now, for most of us, that's going to be too late, 2000 to 0500. Most nighttime flying is finished in the winter at sort of 2000, 2100 hours anyway. But there is an overnight chart there available. Now, this is form 415, which I mentioned as well. That's exactly the same as 215, apart from it covers northwestern parts of Europe. The spot wind forecast is form 214, and that's available at 2200 hours to cover the following morning period, 0400 hours, which covers that day, around 1100 hours, which covers the afternoon, and then around 1700 hours, which covers the evening. So we've got issue times here listed for form 214 as well. And just notice too on here that there is form 414, which is the European spot wind forecast chart as well. So they're listed there too. Okay, so how are these forecasts being produced, and why am I such a fan of form 214 and 215? Well, these are actually produced by human forecasters. So these are human forecasters looking at real-time data, seeing what the weather is doing, getting model output, and then applying their slant, their opinions as to what is happening to the weather. When you look at your apps on a phone, and apps are the absolute bane of a forecaster's life, you'll know if you've been to weather school that I go on about this all the time. But apps are useful. There's no doubt about it. They're useful things to have. But they're about as useful as being able to tell you if you need to hang the washing out or not, because they are pure model data. There is no other quality control check on apps at all. The model will turn around the information that it's got, produce a forecast with no human intervention whatsoever. So 215, which is the UK low-level forecast chart, should be a more accurate prediction than you'll find on your apps. And out of the two, if you're looking at your apps and you're looking at form 215, every single time you should be believing form 215. Now, I know you'll give me examples of when 215 hasn't been correct and your app has, but trust me, that is the outlier. The fact is 215 will be the better forecast because the human forecaster has produced it. And another reason I'm a fan of 215 and 214 is that we basically have got to use it or lose it. The more we use it, the more it can be seen by the people who fund this that it's useful, and as a community, the GA community are using these charts. If we don't use them, then we're going to lose them. We've lost AirMets, and they've been replaced, again, in my opinion, by a service that is inferior. So we don't want to be losing these charts. So I would urge you to use them. Okay, so let's get to the chart itself. This is form 215, and it's the forecast valid for this afternoon from 1400 hours to 2300 hours. So it's a forecast that covered late this afternoon into this evening. Notice that it tells us here that the fronts and zones, so that's this section of the chart, is valid at 1800 hours. So that chart is only valid for 1800 hours today. It's a time specific chart. It isn't valid for between 1400 and 2300. That chart is the chart as is predicted at 1800 hours. Okay, so always remember that. Check out when you load up form 215, have a look at this top right hand corner and see what time that chart relates to. So what should we look at first? Well, first off, take a step back from the chart itself. It's broken down into several sections. First up, we have here the validity time and the frontal zone validity time as well. So we've already looked at that. Just one thing to notice there as well. Notice it says here, forecast weather below 10,000 feet. So the weather we're looking at on here is all below 10,000 feet. 10,000 feet is the ceiling of this chart. We've then got our frontal section in here, which will show us fronts. It tells us the speed of movement of the fronts by the arrows that are marked on there. That one there is moving southeasterly at 15 knots. The frontal system here, with the arrow moving through, is moving in an east-southeasterly direction at 25 knots. So it tells us the speed of movement. The scalloped areas on here are the boundaries of the weather areas, which we'll come to in just a moment. So there's one in here, there's one in here, and there's another one down here. So those are the boundaries of the areas, and each of those areas are given a label. So this whole area in here is area A, the whole area in here is area B1, the area in here is area B, and the area here, everywhere underneath there, is area C. We'll come back to that, as I say, in just a moment. Now below that, we then have a mini decode table. And this can very often get overlooked. When you're looking at this side of the table, which has all of these abbreviations on, this section here can get overlooked. Very often I get people saying, so what does this mean on here? Well, actually, much of what's in there is given to you down here. So this table always stays the same. And it tells us we've got altitudes in hundreds of feet above mean sea level. So the altitudes that we're looking at are all above mean sea level. So cloud altitude is above mean sea level. XXX means not what you think it means. It means the above chart upper limit. And then we've got various different decodes here. First off, it's telling us the speed of movement. All movement speeds are in knots. Temperatures are in degrees C. And hill fog will imply visibility of less than 200 meters. It then tells us about cloud amounts and gives us the breakdown, which is really useful to say that few clouds are 1 to 2/8, scattered cloud is 3 to 4/8, and broken cloud is 5 to 7/8, with overcast being 8/8. It then tells us about icing, so moderate and severe ice. And each of these symbols here, these cup symbols, the left-hand one is moderate ice, the right-hand one is severe ice. And then underneath there, we've got the triangular symbols, which tell us whether there's going to be moderate or severe turbulence. A single triangle is moderate turbulence. A double triangle is severe turbulence. It tells us about thunderstorms, that TS, thunderstorms, and CB, cumulonimbus clouds, implies GR, that's hail, with severe ice and severe turbulence. So whenever you see a thunderstorm on these charts, it's automatically assumed that there will be severe ice and severe turbulence as well. And then FZ precipitation implies that there will be severe icing. No surprise there. And then the next box down here tells us that this is the forecast time that was issued by the Met Office at 0858 Zulu. And it tells us that the forecast can be amended at any time. So this forecast could be updated at any time. So the section down the left-hand side here is basically the chart and then a breakdown of abbreviations with an issue time below. So let's get on to the slightly trickier issue of this section here, this box that we have in here. So the easy thing with this is, first up, notice it's 4 columns. The first column relates to the areas. And these areas, A, B, and C, relate to the areas that are on the chart here. A, B, and we've got B there, and C. So the forecasts here relate to the forecasts that we see on here. We then have a box of details of surface visibility and weather, which is all that section there. And then the next box is cloud, which is the section here. And then the next box is freezing levels. So at which point the freezing level is the final box over here. And then the last section of Form 215 is down the bottom here. And that is an outlook for the next few hours. So that's the outlook until 0600 hours tomorrow. And again, there's always an outlook on these charts. Sometimes it's not exactly the most illuminating of outlooks, but at least it's on the chart. Okay, so what do I look at first of all? Well, first up, I'm interested in the broad view. And my broad view really comes from taking a scan of what's on here on the chart as a whole, and then scanning down these boxes. Now, you might say, well, if you're only doing local flight, if you're doing circuits, why would you want to know what's going on over a broader area? The reason is that, let's say I'm flying from, I don't know, Liverpool or Blackpool, and the weather's fair, but I know that up towards the northwest, look, without having any further knowledge, I know there are fronts. I know there are areas of weather because they're marked on here. And I also know that because that arrow is pointing in a southeasterly direction at 15 knots, if I'm flying from here, it doesn't really take that long for this cloud area to cover the short distance towards Blackpool. So I know that I'm going to be looking up towards the northwest for the weather to deteriorate. Likewise, if I'm flying from Hackney Green, which is my airfield here, then I know that I'm further away from that weather area, but still it's towards the northwest that I need to be looking, because that's the area that the weather's coming in from. It just gives me a broad view without getting into too much detail. So we're then going to look down here, this column here. And what I do is I will have a scan down and just see if there's anything that stands out that I should be really taking note of. First up, area A. Look, I've got in there a symbol. That triangular symbol tells me there's moderate turbulence in area A. Area B, I've got isolated turbulence, and it's telling me here, look, ISOL. So that's isolated turbulence in area B1. So in this area, I've got isolated turbulence as well. Yes, it's not going to be in the area I'm flying if I'm going to be flying in area B, but I know that that is there. So that's the first flag that I've got going up. And if we were flying a little higher, I'm looking down the cloud column here and I'm seeing these symbols. I'm seeing the icing symbols. So I know that I've got to be aware of some icing. Again, area A and area B seem to be the more active of the areas here. And then I'm going to look at the more unusual statements in here. First up, can you see there MTW Max VSB 600? So what that's telling me is that in area A, so in here, there is mountain wave activity with a maximum vertical speed of 600 feet per minute at 8,000 feet. That tells me that that area is actually quite a turbulent area. And notice that in area B, it's also telling me mountain wave activity, maximum vertical speed of 500 feet per minute at 6,000 feet in area B1. Now, both turbulence and this mountain wave have both been mentioned in area B1. So B1 is quite an active area. And just interestingly, that mountain wave activity is associated with wave cloud. And what did we say that we saw on the satellite picture earlier? Wave cloud. So that confirms what we've seen there. Now, these charts are full of abbreviations. So you can see in each of these areas, in each of these boxes, we have abbreviations. How can you work out what those abbreviations are? Well, most of them are similar to METARs, and they're pretty self-explanatory. However, if you want to break them down and have a look at them, what you can do, and I have an abbreviation list that I send to people who come to Aviation Weather School, but what you can do is if you go to the Met Office Aviation site, scroll all the way down the bottom of the page, can you see there that it says Aviation Abbreviations? Click on that, and it brings you a list of abbreviations. So if you get stuck on what one of those abbreviations is, you can click on that link at the bottom of the page and you can get your abbreviation from there. So those abbreviations are all listed for you. And really one of the tricks here is to, on a quiet day such as today, is to look at an individual area and learn the weather in that area. So for example, regardless of whether I was flying in area B today, I get this chart, I concentrate on area B. Okay, so let's say I'm not flying today and I'm just going to look at the area of area B. Break this down on days when you're not flying and you haven't got that pressure of flying. Break it down and work through these abbreviations. Read what the abbreviations are. You'll be amazed how quickly you can pick them up. And again, similar with the cloud where it says isolated broken altocumulus with moderate icing and moderate turbulence, 7,000 foot base with a top above 10,000 feet in area B1. Again, learn it on a day that you are not going to go flying. And similarly with the freezing levels, this is showing us a freezing level at 4,000 to 6,000 feet in the north, above 10,000 feet with isolated sub-zero at 5,000 to 7,000 feet in the south. The day to learn these is the day when it's quiet and when you're not going flying, because one day you'll see something like that. Is that making you go cross-eyed? Because it sure as hell makes me go cross-eyed. But if you've learnt it on a day when you're not flying and a day when it's fairly quiet, such as today, then the information that's on there will sink in. Now, I'm conscious of the time, so we've not got much time left. So what I want to do is just to briefly show you Form 214 and give you just some tips about Form 214 and things that you need to know. So these are the upper winds, okay? They're always at fixed levels, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 18,000 and 24,000 feet. They give you wind direction and they give you wind speed in knots and they give you temperature at that level as well. Now, the important thing to note here, a couple of really important things, is those winds are valid for a fixed time. So the winds that we see on here are the forecast winds for 1800 hours on the 10th of September. So today, those are the forecast winds for today. Although they are valid between 1500 and 2100 hours UTC, they are valid for 1800 hours this evening. So for a fixed time. The other thing to note is that these boxes never change, but they are only valid for the point that the box tells you, and it's the center point of the box. So this one here is valid for 52.3 degrees north, 2.3 degrees west. So here, that's the point it's valid for, not up here or here or here or here. That is the wind in the center of that box. So what you must do is, if you have a wind direction change between boxes, is look at the boxes and then kind of make your own forecast as to how the wind would gradually change from one box to the other. So it's, remember that those boxes are for fixed locations. Okay, the boxes never change, but they are for fixed locations and they are for fixed times as well. So just always be aware of that. Okay, so I'm aware that we're running out of time rapidly. Hopefully there's been some useful information there for you. Let me just give you a quick promo for Weather School. I did mention that we talk about a lot of this at Aviation Weather School. If you've not been to Aviation Weather School yet, then I've got my Aviation Weather School Part 1. The next one with places available, completely presented online by me, is on the mornings of Saturday the 7th and Saturday the 14th of November. We go from 09:30 hours to 12:30 hours. And the idea of Weather School is to build your confidence in making predictions yourself up to 5 days in advance for your flying. So it's being able to spot those weather windows and build your confidence in your own forecasts and those that you're seeing as well. So if you go to weatherschool.co.uk, you can find more information about my Aviation Weather School Part 1. There it is. Just go to Weather School, click on Aviation Weather School Part 1 live online course, and you can find out all the information that you need to there. I've also got my SCUTs course as well, which is an online recorded course for you as well. You can take that now, and SCUTs give you forecasts of cloud bases, cloud tops, freeze levels and things like that. And there's loads of information there at the Weather School site for you to go and have a look through. But do go and have a look at Aviation Weather School Part 1 if you've not been to Aviation Weather School yet. And if you have been and you've not been to Part 2, then I'm running Part 2 as a completely online live course, again presented by me in October. Okay, hopefully that has been useful for you. I hope I've given you some useful hints and tips there. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them by email. So just send me an email to simon@weatherweb.net, or we are at Weather School on Instagram, or you can find us on Facebook as well. Just do a search for Weather School. Be great to hear from you. Okay, folks.
Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you for that. That was very useful. Refreshed a few things in my brain, hopefully a few others as well. Just a quick reminder that we're just going to dive off here and be restreaming for the Flyer live stream at 7:30, so in just over 10 minutes. So if you run, you've got time to make a cuppa, and hopefully we'll see you again online, and we'll see Simon again giving us a quick forecast for the weekend, which I think is going to be lovely, or not. Who knows?
Kind of.
kind of lovely. Lovely summer. Thank you very much, everyone. Hopefully see you in about 10 minutes. Good night.